Greetings everybody, welcome back to Evolving Vibes. Hopefully you've been enjoying the content that I've been uploading from the spiritual aspect, and I'm going to continue to do so. Understand this is for both the experienced practitioner as well as for that newbie witch, someone that maybe hasn't had a lot of experience yet, and anyone in between. The point is, if it resonates with you, run with it. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave it on behind. But definitely, if you could, please subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you feel about the video, let me know other videos that you may want to post. I'm trying to go step by step within a practice as one starts off in the practice and as they evolve a little bit. And so today, it struck me. What I did today, and one of the fun days I had today, was me and a real close friend of mine who's also a witch went into one of our favorite cemeteries. And if you're a witch, you probably do already have a favorite cemetery, I'm sure. To do some spirit work and just to communicate a little bit and just to ground ourselves. Like we talked about yesterday, grounding to me is huge important. I'm going back to work tomorrow, so I definitely wanted to ground myself in my last day off and spend it with a friend. So long story short, we had a lot of different types of activity in the cemetery, even though it was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All that being said, I was thinking about what I was going to do for my next video and when I was going to do my next video. Because I did one yesterday for 30 minutes and I really wanted to have an idea about the next one to do. So that's where it actually struck me. And there's a few things in my practice that really changed both my outlook as well as my life and my practice. And one of those major things, you see, is this book that I read. I had happened upon it by a couple of other witchy groups, and I really wanted to read it. So it's on my iPad. You can get it on iPads or on Amazon, whatever you might want to do. But it's called the Kybalion, Kybalion. And it's an ancient book. It's been around for quite a while. But in it, it underlines a lot of principles that we utilize, whether we know it or unknowingly, within our practice. However, once you start working with each one of these principles and the knowledge behind it, you're going to see how our magic and what we do as a craft is directly tied to the universe. And it helps us to be able to manipulate universal energy a little bit more efficiently and a little bit more effectively to actually manifest what it is we're trying to get, so long as we're clearly focused on what our intent is. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool today just to go over the Kybalion and what's called the Hermetic Principles and touch base on them. By all means, this is not going to be the be-all end-all video. This to me is like an introduction to give you an idea and maybe even give you a taste of going out there for yourself, buying the book, and actually learning and practicing the principles yourself. Some of these principles, I promise you, are going to sound very familiar because if you've been practicing for a while, you've already incorporated these, either knowing or unknowingly, into your practice. Along with that, if you've read other types of self-help books, or even some of the older type self-help books, you'll actually recognize some of these principles within it. So one of the things I'm actually doing today to do this is breaking out my grimoire, because these principles are so important to me that they're actually in my grimoire as well. So we start off with universal laws, and there's 12 universal laws that we want to be mindful of and talk about just a little bit. And I'm just going to bring up each one individually. And it's kind of dark in my room. I got the light facing forward, so I got my glasses on so I can see a little bit easier. So the first law is the law of the Divine Oneness. And basically what that means is everything's interconnected. We are part of a larger entity, and that larger entity is a part of us, and everything in this realm, in this living earth, this world, is actually interconnected. Lives, animals, everything. So when you look at it from that standpoint, it's pretty, for me, it's pretty comforting to know that, to really think that there's this divine oneness and that everything and anything is somewhat connected. Another aspect of it for the second law is the law of vibration. And that's kind of interesting, and I love that one because you learned a little bit of that in physics. Everything has a vibration. Nothing is at rest. Everything is in motion. And you learned that back when you were talking about atoms inside a physics class, maybe back in high school or junior high, depending, and how atoms vibrate. So every surface that we have, including this stone right here, isn't at rest. There's a vibration to it. Now, the slower or lower the vibration, the more solid the surface. The higher the frequency or vibration, the less visible it is. The more we feel versus actually see. And that's why we talked about vibes. And to be honest with you, that's actually where the title for my business comes from, Evolving Vibes. Because we're all a vibration, and our goal in this realm is try to always increase our vibe as best we can in whatever experience that we may be going through in this realm itself. Another principle to be aware of is the law of attraction. And you've probably heard that if you've looked at Scott Cunningham's The 13 Goals of the Witch. One of those goals is minding your mind and minding your thoughts. What we think, we attract. What we speak, we attract. What we feel, again, we attract. So all that being said, when we put our intent out to do a spell, to do some magic, what we're actually doing is putting that energy into the universe in order to attract it back. If in the back of our head, we're saying, I don't think this is going to work, guess what? It's not going to work. In the back of my head, if I say tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going to have a horrible day, I'm going to attract a lot of energies that could, if I allow it to, make me have a horrible day. One of the things that I do throughout my day is reframe myself. So whatever is coming in towards me, if it's not going to be something that's going to make me feel all warm and fuzzy, I reframe it so it doesn't have that direct impact on me to make my day or my attitude feel bad or worse. So that's, again, one of the other laws, the third law actually. The fourth law is the law of correspondence. And you've probably heard this before in some form of witchy realm. It's one of my favorite sayings. It's actually going to be a tattoo on my arm, probably this summer. But as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. That's the law of correspondence. And as above, so below, what we think is what becomes. So within, so without, what we feel, we project. So the spirit, so the universe, so the spirit, again, we're all that oneness. And so what we actually experience here and how we actually experience it here is a direct relationship to what we're going to be putting out as energy, what we're going to be putting out as our mantra for that day. So it's very important to consider that. And again, minding your thoughts, right? Now, number 5 is the law of action. And that's pretty simple, but again, in our practice, we don't often think about that. But the law of action is any manifestation that we're trying to do, whatever spell it might be, whatever thought we want to put out there into the universe, any manifestation requires the right action. So let's say, not that I ever do this, I never do. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just I don't do it. If I were to manifest or put an intent out there that I want to win on scratch tickets, but I don't buy scratch tickets, guess what? I'm not going to win on scratch tickets, right? I don't buy scratch tickets. I just don't like throwing money away like that. But some people do, and that's perfect for you if it fits, right? But if I put a spell out there, this is what I want by the end of the month, if I don't take the right actions towards what I want by the end of the month, that energy is just going to the universe and it's going to be absorbed. It's not going to come back to me. If it does come back to me, it's going to be titrated back at the most minuscule amount. Therefore, when we do a manifestation spell, we have to put the correct actions after that spell into play in order for that full circle to occur. Let's remember, right? Everything is connected. And that's where these 12 laws is really the foundation to our magic and to our magical practice. And so the next law, law number 6, is the law of cause and effect. And some people will call that the law of karma. What you put out, you get back. You put a smile out, you're eventually going to get a smile back. Put a frown out, you're eventually going to get frowns back, right? Same thing goes with the type of energy you put out. One thing a lot of us try to do is match people's energy. And there's right times and wrong times to do that. Generally what I try to do is overmatch someone's energy. So if someone's giving me some negativity vibes and just having a bad day, I try to be extra positive and extra nice to maybe help them along the way. If someone's getting aggressive and such, then I try to remove myself from that experience altogether, because it's not a vibe I want to be involved in. Because again, what you put out, you're going to attract. And again, no matter what the situation might be, if you do something, there's an effect to it. You push over a domino, you're going to have that proverbial domino effect. If you put out negative for no good reason at all, it can come back to you. I'm not shy about doing any type of magic. I've done defensive magic. I've done things to protect myself that some people might call hexing, but it's not something I do quite frequently, and it's certainly not something that I do without really a level head, without emotion, and really mostly, like I said before, for my own defensiveness and self-defense versus actually saying, you know what, that so-and-so didn't put enough fries in my large fries, so that's kind of silly, and that's where karma does come back to people, if you will. So, the law of compensation is the 7th law, and that's all about you get rewarded for the right action. And again, you go over the top to be nice to someone having a bad day, you're going to be compensated for that niceness one way or the other. And that's not to say you want to be overly nice because you want to bank a lot of goodwill. It's going to be sincere, right? You're going to really say, you know what? I recognize that this person's probably having a bad time in his path right now, and I want to try to just bring their vibe up a little bit and make their day a little bit better. And so I'm going to do this, or this. And again, if you're doing it because you want to try to help somebody else out and bring up their vibe, then there's compensation involved for that. Unlike those YouTubers that you'll see and some of the other social media people that you see that film themselves going up to homeless people and giving $100 bill or a Big Mac or whatever it might be. Those to me are just humble braggers. It's like, oh, look at what I did. They're not really doing it for the right reasons, and they're filming themselves doing it, which I definitely, if you haven't figured that one out, I don't agree with. So another aspect of the universal laws, law number 8, the law of perpetual energy. And that's pretty much what I was saying a little bit earlier. Energy is always moving, and energy is always changing. So no matter where we are, we can always tap into that universal energy to recharge ourselves. When we were talking about grounding yesterday, in recharging, getting back energy, that's part of what I was talking about. Meditating will help you gain and bring back some of that universal energy. Grounding yourself will, as well as other exercises that you'll figure out for yourself to do so. Like one of the first things I did when I came back from the cemetery today was go in and give myself a nice hot shower with some sage and some soaps that I've actually made. One, to re-energize myself, because when you're working and doing spirit work, they're feeding off of your energy in order to be able to respond back and to manifest. And so it does get draining, and I'm actually still kind of drained right now, but feeling good, feeling empowered. So that's what I mean about energy's always there and energy's ever changing. And what we need to do is understand that and figure out what works for us to re-energize ourselves when need to do so. And it doesn't have to be an elaborate process. You can literally sit in your car for 5 minutes before your shift or during your shift when you're on your break and just tap into that energy and re-energize yourself and bring your battery back up to a reasonable level that's going to allow you to operate yourself in your own realm in a more purposeful way. It doesn't have to be 8 hours of sleep, although there's no substitute for that either. Don't mind me, I love tea. I do make my own tea as well. This one's not one of my homemade ones, but I did add a little bit of herbs to it before finishing its brew. Now, law number 9 is the law of relativity. And that is, it's all relative. Everything is related. So what we do here cascades down the road somewhere along the way. One way I like to look at that law and describe it is if you had a bucket of water and you took the smallest pebble and you dropped it in that bucket, you'd see that everything's related because that pebble would still cause that ripple effect all the way through that bucket. So no matter what we feel for energy or what we put out there for energy, there's always that ripple effect. Whether it's a large amount of energy when we're having one of those moments, or it's a small amount of energy with any part of our day. That energy is related, and somehow along the way, we're going to get a vibratory effect from that energy. Along with that is the law of polarity. And that one's one of my favorite ones too, because that demonstrates there are two sides to everything. There's a light and a dark. They're both the same, they're just different extremes. There's love and there's hate. Love is to one extreme, hate is to another extreme, but in between are all these steps. So when we're raising our vibe, if we're having what we consider to be a bad day, we're not going to get to fantastic day by snapping our fingers. But what we can do, and again with those little pebbles, is put little things into play to gradually increase our vibe from a bad day to a not so bad day, to a halfway decent day, to an okay day, to a good day, and so on and so forth. It's all how we understand the concepts, and it's all how we take all of these concepts and apply them into our personal everyday life and everyday activity. And that's what I meant when I said, after reading all of this book and reading all of these principles and laws, it really did change my life. It changed how I actually do things, respond to things, and how you heard me just say respond. I don't react, I respond now. I try to make sure I never react. And the law of rhythm. And what that means is nothing at all is permanent. And that was the most releasing thing for me when I really understood it and I really adapted that into my life. No matter what's going on, it's not permanent. So if it's positive and it's joyful, live in that moment and enjoy that moment. If it's disdainful and not very pleasant, understand it's not permanent. Things are going to get better, right? Because of that vibratory aspect where there's one extreme all the way to the other extreme. So if we're on that one extreme of feeling really low and down, understand it's not permanent, and we're going to gradually increase our vibe to be feeling really happy and good. And it's the same concept as you see with the wheel of the world in tarot. That wheel is always in motion. Sometimes on the upswing, other times on the downswing, sometimes at the very bottom of the wheel, other times at the very top of the wheel. Nothing at all is permanent. So don't sweat the small stuff. In number 12, the law of gender. And that's all about the male and female gender, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But it's about manifestation itself and how that requires balance. Now, when you see me do tarot on my daily cards, I'm not applying a gender specifically as a person. So if the King of Cups comes up, I'm not saying this is a male who's very loving, who wears his heart on his sleeve, but does have some issues with being overzealous, jealous, sensitive, that sort of thing. What I'm saying is this is a male energy versus a female energy. And what that dictates to with the Kybalion is the male energy or the masculine energy is our conscious mind, what we're thinking, how we react to things, how we perceive our reality, versus the feminine energy, which is our subconscious mind, which is the more of the controlling mind. The subconscious never forgets. So whatever experience we've gone through, the subconscious remembers it. Same thing goes with knowledge. Same thing goes with emotions. And so if we more often than not listen to our intuition, we're listening to that feminine energy. We're listening to that subconscious mind. And that's why that's the better one to follow, because that is unfiltered, that doesn't have any bias, and it doesn't have any dog in that fight, if you will. Versus the conscious mind is very much filtered, very much opinionated, and is really based on past experiences and how they played out versus on a universal issue at hand. So that is the 12 universal laws that we get into when we start talking about the Kybalion. Now, just to go on a little insight, we're going to talk about the 7 Hermetic Principles as well. So these, again, go hand in hand, and it really does change the way you perceive life and perceive things once you actually start getting into them, understanding them, and reading more about it. Like I said, I can't stress enough, this is literally just an overview. What I'm doing here is giving you some insight to it. By no means is it giving you the full amount of information that you're going to obtain by reading the book itself and at your own pace and absorbing it. And there are going to be other aspects of the book that really resonate with you versus some of the aspects that really resonated with me. So when we look at the 7 Hermetic Principles, the first one that comes to mind is the all is mind, the universe is mental. And what that really means is every aspect of what we are and what we have is universal consciousness. So it goes to, again, what we think we will manifest. What thoughts we have will be brought back towards us, because universally it's all one consciousness. So that being said, it's important for us to really focus on the positive aspects of things, controlling our realm and controlling our reactions to things. It's never good to have a reaction. The best thing to do is to absorb, to process, and then respond at a later time. Maybe that's 2 minutes, maybe that's 5 minutes, maybe that's 5 days. Depends on the situation, right? But it's better to respond than it is to react, because reactions definitely come from that masculine side. And if you've ever watched some of these home videos and such, and police chases, that masculine energy can cause some real havoc in a person's life. So it's better to utilize that feminine energy, that intuitiveness, and that non-biased process in order to respond to a situation versus react to a situation. And it goes along with that, everything in nature is mental, which means there's a form of consciousness in everything. And scientists have just proven not too long ago that trees do communicate with each other through their rooting systems and such. And nature is conscious, just as we are conscious, just in a different way. If you have houseplants, you can vouch for that by what happens when you talk and nurture them. They tend to do much better than the ones that are ignored and just simply watered. It goes a lot like people too. You can be in a relationship, and if all you're doing is watering the roots, but not showing it love, kindness, and affection, it's not going to be a relationship for very long, is it? However, what you put out, you'll get back. You give out that loving energy, that attentiveness, that does come back to you, right? So the next Hermetic principle is the principle of correspondence. And again, no matter where we are in life, there's always a correspondence to it. So light, there's dark. The way we think, we feel on the inside, we express. Now, if we repress emotions, if we repress feelings, guess what? They're still going to be expressed in another way. And we're not getting into shadow work yet, but when you do shadow work, that's part of one of the big things that you actually learn. A big portion of the shadow self is that inner child that learned very young at age, whether it be through their parents or through friends or in school or even their siblings, things that they have to say and things that they have to do in order to be accepted. they also learn things they have to repress in order to be accepted. So as we get older, if we don't work in our shadow self to work through those repressed feelings, thoughts, emotions, reactions, or responses to things, they tend to come out in other ways. A good example of that are triggers you might have. If someone's sitting down next to you and they're chewing quite loudly and with their mouth open, that can be a trigger. I know it's a trigger for me, and it's a trigger because of some form of repression. I've learned that that's my trigger, and I've learned that I'm okay with it now. I don't let it drive me nuts any longer because I've recognized that in my inner child and in myself as being a trigger, and I've continued to work through that whole thing. And that's just one aspect. There's tons of other ones to go along with that. But that is number 2, the principle of correspondence. Again, a brief overview. I could spend at least 2 hours just going over this topic. I won't want to talk that long, and I'm positive you wouldn't sit here and listen to me for 2 hours either. Now, this third Hermetic principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, and everything vibrates. So that being said, when we are doing manifestations, we're trying to connect to a vibration that we want to attract towards us. Now, part of that is through the manifestation work, the spell work, if you will. But another part of that has to be the actions that we put into play after that in order to bring us to that vibe. Because all manifestation is matching a vibe, is bringing yourself up to a vibration that we need to be at in order to get what it is that we're looking for. Whether it be peace, whether it be joy, whether it be harmony, no matter what it might be. That's what we're actually looking to do. And one of the cool things about YouTube that you can search out are different types of vibrations. There's different videos, music, all these things that match very specific vibrations for things you may want to do. Meditation, hypnosis, the music I use is a vibration to induce trance. Another vibration is for astral projection. There's some really cool music or background music out there that you can use, as well as guided meditation for astral projection. And honestly, it does work. I have done that before, and it's pretty cool and pretty intense. Now, the other principle that we want to be aware of, number 4, is the principle of polarity. You have one end and there's always another extreme. So if the light is one extreme, darkness is the other extreme. In the middle are different shades. If love is one extreme, hate is another extreme. And in the middle, there's all these different vibrations and levels. And that's what we need to understand with our day. Whatever we're feeling, whatever we're going through right now, understand that there's a whole nother extreme to that emotion that we're feeling. Our task isn't so much to get to the total end of the other extreme, but to gradually do things, both through breathing, through meditation, and through actions, to gradually lift our vibration to a level that we find more acceptable. We don't have to stay in any type of unacceptable condition. If we're having a bad day, we can make ourselves have a bad day for 8 hours. Or we can say, hey, this isn't working out so well right now with the vibration that I'm at. My vibes are getting a little too low, a little too slow, and I'm not having myself a good day. So what can I do to increase my vibe? And let me do this, this, and this. And I promise you, you do that, you'll change a lot of how you respond to situations throughout your day. And you won't literally have yourself a bad day, as people put it. And so the Hermetic principle number 5 is the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in, and everything has its tides. So all things rise, all things fall. Everything is a pendulum. So if we're extremely happy here, the pendulum swings to the completely unhappy. Our job is to try to maintain some form of medium with that pendulum. And it takes a lot of practice to do. I'm not going to lie to you on it. But you'll find yourself not having that rhythm extreme, not going from, I'm having a completely awesome day to, oh my God, where's the nearest bridge I can throw myself off of? Not that you ever would, not that I ever would, just, again, using that as an expression. But long story short, understand that there is always a rhythm. Now, if someone wronged you, the good news is that's a rhythm. So they may have wronged you. Understand, you don't often have to take a lot of actions against them, especially with our craft. We don't have to go home and do a whole dial up on them or carve their name into a candle and do some herb and some candle work on them. A lot of times all we have to do, and it's probably one of my most favorite simple spells to do, is I wish you the energy you deserve. I say that under my breath. I don't say that to people, definitely not. But that's it. It's like, I wish you the energy you deserve. So if they're doing well and they're just having a bad day with me, they're not going to have a curse on them or a hex on them. They're still going to get the energy that's deserving to it. If they're doing that with everyone and they're just a bully or just a person that just feels empowered by hurting other people, then that energy is going to come back to them as well, and it's deserving. But it's not a hex, it's not a curse. It's just, as I said before, a gentle wish from the universe, from me to them, saying, whatever energy you're putting out, I hope you get back what it is that you deserve. And you'll find how empowering that little statement is too in your everydays, because, again, just saying it and moving on makes you feel much better about anything that's going on within itself. The sixth Hermetic principle is the principle of cause and effect. What we put out, we get back. What is brought back out will always be brought back. So every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. And there are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. That's one of my favorite quotations in that whole Kybalion book. That right there. And I'll read it again just because. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized, but nothing escapes the law. So when we say this was by chance, it's just because we've not recognized the law of causation. But the reality is everything follows that law and that rule. And so understand cause and effect is probably the most important thing in your life. What you put out, you're going to get back. And like I said before, they classified that afterwards as the law of karma, but it's the law of cause and effect. That's what I always call it. Now, I don't even use the word karma in my day-to-days. It's always cause and effect. That's what I've known as for a very long time now. From reading this book and from my personal just viewpoints on it. Now, the seventh Hermetic principle is the principle of gender. Gender is everything. And everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So no matter who you are, no matter what you are, what kind of being you are, you have masculine and feminine energy. We all do. As I said before, in our type of being, our masculine energy is our conscious mind. Our feminine energy tends to be our subconscious mind and our intuition. In everything, there's the masculine, and everything, there's the feminine. And understanding that really goes a long way in how you work with life and how you work with things in general. So when you look at the Kybalion, that is a synopsis of what the book's about and what the principles are about. And I promise you, as you understand these, you write them down, you put them in your grimoire, but you live them too, you're going to see how that book and those principles and those laws can really, really, really change your life for the better. And definitely, if nothing else, gives you a lot more to think about and a lot more to really understand about yourself. And as I said before, I don't care if you're a practicing witch that's been around for generations or if you're a newbie witch or baby witch, these things will work on your practice. And incorporating these in your practice will make you a much more powerful, a much more effective practitioner, and a much more tolerant being as you get into your realm and you deal with other people. So I do hope you enjoyed this for today. I was going to say I hope you enjoyed this reading for today, but it wasn't the reading as much as the recording. I do hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comment section what you think, your thoughts on it, your opinions on it. And maybe next time we'll do something with regard to Wicca versus witchcraft. Not that there's a big difference, but there's some differences, and the 13 Goals of the Witch. But if you want to see something else, you want to talk about something else, again, hit the comments, let me know, and I'll be glad to customize whatever it is you want to talk about moving forward. But as always, I want you to be safe, I want you to be healthy and happy, and as always, be blessed. And we'll see you next time.